up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Justine of Employed to Serve. Thanks for being here today. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you here. I was obsessed with Eternal Forward Motion back in 2019. I consider that the last hardcore album of good days. That's how I look at it now. Um, but thank you for giving us some new music to keep us busy. We have Conquering coming out September 17th. Is this just a direct continuation of Eternal Forward Motion, or is this like a new beginning for the band in a way?
I'd say this is more of a new beginning. Like we've kind of consciously tried to go a more metal direction with this album, just because we kind of felt like we did this sort of metal hardcore crossover quite a lot with the last three records, and we just really wanted to challenge ourselves as songwriters and as a band to sort of write a more metal sort of orientated record.
Okay. And that was something that you've always wanted to do? Was this like a vision that Employed to Serve always had, or was this just kind of like a spur of the moment, out of nowhere idea?
It's kind of something we've had in mind for the past like 3 or so years, because there's only so much I feel you can achieve in the sort of like genre we were sitting in, the sort of more scattier kind of hardcore, and as bands, like you kind of want to keep striving forward and writing different albums. Otherwise, you kind of get to the point where you might as well just sort of stick with what you have and just tour it,
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm quite excited for everyone to hear it because I feel like it's our best work to date for sure. It's definitely my favorite anyway.
Yeah. I don't understand how Bon Jovi could be playing the same songs for like 40 years at this point.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that your music, I mean, when I first, Eternal Forward Motion was my first Employed to Serve album. I discovered the earlier work after that. But like, I've always thought that the music had many different vibes behind it. I mean, the last album going from like Sawtooth Twin to We Forget You to Bare Bones on a Blue Sky, which was like a shoegaze song. I've called that Employed the Cure in a way. So it's fair to say trying new things was always part of the songwriting process for Employed to Serve, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like we've always had stuff like singing present, like even on our first sort of, EP, like can't remember the name of it now. Counting Crows, like it had not Counting Crows, Long Time Dead.
Yeah.
Can't even remember my own stuff. But yeah, like we've always just had singing and melody on everything. It's just sort of like part of like because you never want to sort of pigeonhole yourself and like back yourself in a corner when you're writing songs. I think it's always like kind of important for us to kind of have like different aspects in our albums all the time just so like if we do choose to kind of like go in a certain direction it's kind of like a natural progression rather than I don't know we're going to be a pop band today or it's yeah I feel like it's always important for us to sort of have a to flow into things.
hmm With the first two singles that you released off of Conquering Exist and Mark of the Grave, is that a good representation of like this metal direction that you're going into for people who haven't heard the album yet? Is that like a good representation of what the entirety of Conquering is going to be like, or is that just one taste so far?
I think it's quite a standalone like it works in the context of the album but it's a very standalone sounding single that one like I don't feel like it reflects the entire album completely because I think like the rest of the album's a lot less melodious and there's like still melody in the rest of the songs but that's definitely a single track if you know what I mean whereas like the rest of the album's a lot like heavier and like doesn't have as much singing like a lot more sort of like our sort of more metal sounding vocals on it because it's quite fun because it's quite taken it's upset a few people like only like very few people for the most part the feedback's been really good but most people are like what's happened have they turned into a dad rock band we definitely haven't that was just a bit of fun to be honest.
Well, I've always wondered, like, because you mentioned you're taking a more metal direction as opposed to hardcore, and I had a discussion with Lamb of God about this last year. Like, I've never understood what the difference is between hardcore and metal because, like, they're both very brutally honest, loud, aggressive, and raw forms of music. Like, I never understood how either a fan of an old hardcore band like Sick of It All or Code Orange, a newer hardcore band, couldn't appreciate a band like Creator or Obituary or Slayer or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like for the most part, people are just music fans. Like I listen to, everything from hardcore to death metal, black metal, like all that kind of stuff, like hip hop. Like I just consume music. That's what I do. Whereas I do feel like sometimes there are little pockets of people who are kind of gatekeepers and they kind of like, no, I must only listen to the same album over and over, only Iron Maiden. Um, or like, put X big band in there. But I think for the most part, people are like open minded. But you do kind of get the few who are sort of like must be able to put labels on things and only like listen to what's sort of true.
Yeah. Well, I've always said that this modern day hardcore sound, I'm going to get so much shit for this analogy, but it just humor me because I think it's a good example. I feel like a lot of bands like what Employed to Serve is, or even Loathe, or Code Orange, or a lot of these new school hardcore bands are sort of having like a similar effect to like what the new metal scene had. How like, people started off with Korn and Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park and Deftones, and then they moved on to heavier stuff. I do see like with bands like you really being a lot of people's gateway drugs into either punk rock or old school hardcore or metal.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, like I mean that kind of stuff is exactly how I got into music, and I feel like you do need those bands. Like a huge one, like a good example for me is like I got into hardcore through Hatebreed because they played like metal festivals and stuff, and I was into like mainstream metal at the time, and I was like, oh, this is sick. And then I found a whole new like subgenre that I didn't know existed at the time. So yeah, it's like you said, like it's a good sort of pathway sort band really, like things like that. So hopefully we can be that for someone, but if not, it's all good.
I do gotta ask this because you mentioned that this album is pretty raw and heavy. Are we gonna get though like a song like "Bare Bones on a Blue Sky"? Because I thought that was a magical like shoegazy ending, and I'm hoping that we get at least one more song like that on Conquering.
I think I'm trying to think actually. There's I don't want to ruin it for you. There is a wild card on the album, I think. Like it's not quite to the same sort of like level of Bare Bones, like in the shoegaze aspect, but I feel like there's a lot of different sort of like ideas in there that might sort of like kind of have a similar effect, if you know what I mean.
What is it with hardcore bands and shoegaze now? Because Loathe had a lot of shoegaze elements on their last album. Code Orange has Bleeding in the Blur, and so I'm just wondering, like, shoegaze and hardcore, those shouldn't work as well together, but they do.
Oh yeah, like I only listen to shoegaze that's made by ex-hardcore members because they just know how to make it heavier. I think like there's something about this, it's a bit rawer and like I don't know, it's weird, but I know what you mean. I do listen to like old Creation Records kind of stuff, like My Bloody Valentine, but for the most part, I don't prefer like Nothing and Slow Crush, like bands that are like ex-hardcore kids doing shoegaze because I just think they do it well. I think, yeah, they just obviously know what pedals and what riffs to use, I guess.
My friend made a joke, and this is my friend's words, not mine, but he says it's hardcore band's way of trying to be emotional without being a metalcore band.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, it's a tasteful way of like kind of doing it, I guess.
Yeah.
Without the vocals.
Well,
Also,
yeah.
I like the fact that I'm not saying this is all, but like if you're not a very confident singer, I think like those extra chorus pedals are really like they'd be attractive to me, for example, because I can't really sing. So I'm just like, yes, drench it in chorus.
Oh, don't sell yourself short. I could see Bare Bones on a Blue Sky being translated so well live. I think don't sell yourself short. And
Yeah, I think yeah, it's so interesting. But yeah, like Loathe like doing it really well as well. Like I mean, they're great singers, so they don't even need any effects.
well, I've noticed you have multiple usages of your voice as well, from what we've heard on Bare Bones to a really, really aggressive track. And I mean, I even saw your Deftones cover on the Metal Injection Slay at Home Festival. Excellent work on that, by the way. Is it fair to say that maybe you have different usages of your voice to express different sides of who you personally are?
Yeah, I think so. And it's also about adapting to what works to for the song. Like everything's for the good of the song. Like, for example, on Mark of the Grave, I did less vocals because it lent itself to having more singing on it, which Sammy did perfectly. So I think it's like, I sort of do things for the purpose of like the band. Like I only learned how to do vocals altogether for the band. So I kind of almost need a reason to do something and it kind of motivates me to change. So yeah, I think it's a bit of both really. It's a bit of like me expressing, different emotions through it, but also just what works.
Do you need to hear the music to come up with lyrics, or do you have a lyrical idea sometimes that could maybe influence the song itself?
A bit of both really. So I try to kind of keep a lyric book going like at all times. I try and write in it as frequently as possible, but sometimes when I listen to a track, I'll have something in mind, or like it will make me refer to something that I've written previously that hasn't been used before. Or it's kind of, yeah, it really varies. So to be honest.
Yeah. Have you ever had like the best lyrics ever, but then they're always like one syllable over or under the arrangement of every song?
All the time. It's so annoying. Like I hate it so much. Like it makes me want to be a songwriter just so I can like purposely put my lyrics and fit everything around it. But that's just not how things work, sadly.
Do you want
Maybe not.
maybe. Do you want your lyrics to be open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe engage the listener into maybe seeing things from employed to service point of view?
But we like to leave them open ended because I think I've always liked it personally when bands do that because I find it easier to sort of like relate to it because you can kind of like it can have different meanings in different situations. So yeah, we more or less keep it open ended, and obviously like we sing a lot of personal stuff, so like it's nice not to be so exposed.
Okay. Yeah, some people say that leaving things open to interpretation is sort of like a cop out for an artist not to explain their own work, but I also think that maybe it can leave you vulnerable because it can almost make you when your art is challenged sometimes it can almost make you look at it from a not so flattering point of view.
Yeah, for sure. That's it. And also, like, if you're writing about someone you don't like, you don't necessarily want it to be a diss track, like, because no one needs that headache.
Well, if you don't mind me asking though, because "We Forget You" is probably my favorite Employed to Serve song ever, and I just really want to know what was in the mindset of that sort of song because the instrumentals has like this really aggressive melody behind it. The screams are so raw, but I feel so much emotion behind it. If you don't mind me asking what the thought process was behind that song.
It's just about feeling guilt for not realizing how someone you loved has struggled. So yeah, it's just about that basically.
Okay, like realizing something about somebody, the hard way almost in a way, right?
Yeah, just sort of being like really wrapped up in your own world that you haven't realized that they've needed your help.
Yeah, that's a very relatable thing too, as well, because like you want to try to help people, but you also have to focus on yourself, and it almost seems like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's just about finding balance, really.
Yeah. In terms of like your style, do you also feel that maybe Employed to Serve can like play with a variety of different bands because of how you mentioned you took a more metal route with this, so can you see yourself being open to more different types of tour packages with this as well?
I think so, like because we've always had this like I don't know if you're sort of aware of it in America, this really awkward British sound where we don't really fit anywhere. There's not like a nice little, I mean, which is good to some extent, but sometimes I do feel it's been to our detriment on tour packages. Like it's always been a bit of a hard one to sort of like be like, where do we sit? Can we like because we were like almost too hardcore for the metal kids and too metal for the hardcore kids. So like I feel like with this new album, because they're a bit more definitively metal, it might help us sort of like, fit in places a bit better.
Mhm.
But I've always liked the fact we kind of like we do play with loads of different bands. Like I feel like we always do stuff like we toured with Milk Teeth, who were like, a grungy pop punk band years ago, and it worked really well. So like I feel like we'll always be open to do that. And I've always loved how bands like Slayer have always played like Primavera, like they've been like the token metal band on like a very diverse lineup. Or so I'm hoping we can kind of like continue to be very like work like be in diverse lineups whilst also sort of being easier to slot in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned Slayer because after they put out Diablos in Musica, which they call Slayer's new metal album, there was a saying for a while saying Tom Araya is my favorite rapper. Yeah.
Awesome.
But I do think you have that sort of UK hardcore sound in a way, which I almost feel like is its own genre. I just interviewed Mastiff last week,
Oh, they're
and
awesome.
yeah, they're a great band, and congrats to them. Great guys too, and but like Loathe is really doing well. But then you also have like more, you have your Architects and Bring Me the Horizons, but then you have like new bands of that, like As Everything Unfolds coming to be. And I've always said that metalcore is the UK's greatest export because Massachusetts is the metalcore capital and Australia is now the new metalcore capital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've both got some great bands.
Yeah. So it's fair to say that like there is a good enough scene. I mean, do you think that a band can almost make a living at this point touring in the UK alone because there's such a happening scene there?
I think it is possible. It just depends on like how big they are, because like you can only really play, like if it's big venues, you could probably only play like the major cities. So like there's only like what, like 7 of those or so, and then you obviously don't want to overplay them. So I think you might be able to
Yeah. But
play it right, do like different shows, I guess.
is it maybe easier to start like a heavier band though? Because it seems like, I mean, with every band from the UK I've spoken to, I heard there's great camaraderie in the scene. Everybody has each other's backs, and I've heard that there's great promoters, great people in the industry who work there. So is it fair to say that maybe like if you want to start a band in the UK, it may be a little bit easier to get your foot in the door?
I think it's easy because it's small and like everyone knows each other, and everyone at the moment is are really good at championing each other. So I think from that aspect it is. However, I feel like with US, because it's like you can literally make a living out of just only touring the US alone because it's so giant. I think that's also like a huge advantage that and same with like European bands as well, because like obviously with Brexit now we've kind of alienated ourselves. So I feel like it is in a sense like it's weird because it's a double-edged sword being a small country. You kind of know everyone, and it's really great because you can kind of like once you know one person, chances are they know them, and you can get your foot in the door a lot quicker. But also, yeah, you kind of like you can only tour the UK so many times.
Yeah, I totally understand. I want to go back a little bit to the lyricism. There was one question I forgot, but in order to like get that lyrical inspiration, or even just the inspiration to write music in general, do you have like a usual place that you go to, like a usual studio or a realm in order to get inspiration, or does inspiration strike when you least expect it?
Bit of both. So, like I traditionally used to sort of write on the train to work because I used to commute into London like for an hour and a half, well, 2 hours overall in like total. So it was loads of sort of free time of looking out the window. But I'm really lucky. We've got some woods like down the road from us, so I kind of go walking in the woods. Very black metal of me.
Yeah,
But like I find just getting in nature or just in a space where you're not interrupted and just sort of like can just let your mind wander.
yeah. And isolation, I've always thought, is a great fuel for creativity as well. Do you need to write when you're alone, or do you sometimes prefer to be in the company of your other bandmates in order to help the ideas come through more through fruition?
Oh, definitely alone. Yeah, like it's yeah. I'm interested to see if many bands actually do it like in together. I mean, I sometimes write with Sammy, like quite a lot. We sometimes sort of like sit down and write lyrics together. But yeah, for the most part, like I kind of feel like you need to be alone to sort of develop, because sometimes, like especially if you do like free writing, like which I do a lot, like the lines you come up with can be quite cringy and like funny. So you need some time to sort of like edit it.
Well, I've always thought it's like the most ironic thing because I get this answer 90% of the time when I ask somebody if they prefer to write alone or in isolation. And most of the artists say isolation, but a band is also a collaborative thing. So I find it so ironic. And everybody is the same, whether they're lyricists or vocalists, guitarists, bassists, drummers. Everybody likes to be alone. So I just find it so ironic that a band is a collaborative thing, but everybody prefers to be alone when it comes to cultivating ideas.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I'm convinced like the majority of the music industry is like introverted people. Like it's because we're the ones who stayed in all summer.
Yep.
We're like listening to music and like writing or like learning our instruments, whereas all of our friends would go outside. So
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, we were staying inside and staying at home before it was cool.
Yeah, self-isolating before it was cool. Yeah.
Oh, when it comes to playing your material live, I've yet to see Employed to Serve live, and I really hope you come to the States soon. But do you maybe channel a similar energy into your live presence as you do when you are songwriting, or do you consider playing live and songwriting two completely separate art forms altogether?
I think with this album, we've started thinking about live a bit more, not to the detriment of like the like how it sounds in the album, but we've always wanted to be able to replicate the album live. So obviously, if we have like a huge orchestra, that's not going to work live. So we kind of try and like strip things back and make sure that we can provide the same live experience, same album experience live.
Hmm. Well, I've noticed because I was watching like footage of how of Employed to Serve playing live numerous times. I mean, the energy that's on stage is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, it's true hardcore at its peak. And when it comes to like, do you almost have to like practice your live presence, like crowd interaction or stage presence, as much as like the song itself in a way?
I've started to have to like think of what I'm saying in between songs. I won't have a script, but I'll have like points, just because like I found like when my adrenaline's going crazy, I just don't make sense on stage. So I've had to like have little mental notes of things what to say. But yeah, for the most part, like I try and like pace and stuff and get used to practicing the songs whilst moving, because it's really interesting with weird time signature songs. If you step wrong, sometimes it can throw off your rhythm. So I've sort of like worked out how to like move to the, like move and like perform to the beat a bit more. Um, so yeah, like it's a funny one.
As somebody who's seen bands like Vane live or Harm's Way live numerous times, I've always thought that like this style has got to be the hardest style to replicate live, just because it's like an experience. It's like if you blink, you miss something, and it's like so easy to almost. It almost seems so easy to lose yourself in a way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like especially if it's like a very messy, not like messy as in sloppy, but like a messy kind of like time signature wise song. Like you can really put your foot in it sometimes. So yeah, like it's fun. That's why I like it though. I think because like playing live is like the one time I can't think about anything else. Otherwise I'll mess up. So like you kind of get in the flow of things a lot more when you play live.
Yeah, I'd imagine that like when we see the greatest performers ever, like I'd imagine that like it's just one of those things you have to do it more and more and more and mess up a bunch of times before you get it right, and there's no other way around it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you're only human. Like you can practice until you're blue in the face, but sometimes you just won't be feeling it and you'll mess up by accident. So
Yeah.
it's just about kind of like not letting it ruin the rest of the set, really.
Yeah. And do you feel that because I've also noticed that with like a lot of these hardcore bands, to me it's the crowd interaction and the stage, these small DIY venues, beating the hell out of these small clubs. To me that's like a hardcore show. But like I've seen a lot of hardcore bands like, play, whether if it's like at a festival, like I saw the Fever 333 play in a stadium in 2019, and like you see all these like hardcore bands play at like venues with barricades and stricter security. Do you almost feel that maybe almost the bigger the venue is, that it could almost hinder that sort of hardcore experience, or is that like kind of irrelevant?
I think it depends. I think if people know the words to your songs, like you can feel very involved with the song, like with the crowd, even if you are like 10 foot away and behind a barrier. But like I feel like and like that's like more metal bands, and I feel with hardcore, I think it is quite hard to get the same like vibe when you can't watch stage divers like come off the stage and stuff like that. Yeah, it's weird. I think it's kind of different. I mean, I personally prefer like the barrier now, just because like the amount of times I've been knocked and like I've messed up the song completely, and also like things like that. So like I think only because like our songs are quite like, I find them quite difficult to sort of always stay in time because they keep changing. So I think with hardcore, if I were more of a hardcore band, I definitely would prefer to have no barriers because it's more fun.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it depends. I saw the Dillinger Escape Plan on their farewell tour, and like they played at Webster Hall one time, and that's a huge venue run by AEG, like very strict security. But for the occasion, they removed the barrier. Like the security was even removing the barrier for when they went on, and like
that's so
the
cool.
security was like, "I'm out. My shift is over." And I was like, what are you talking about? And then the Dillinger Escape Plan went on, and there was more people on the stage than off of it. So
I don't know how. That's the thing. I don't know how they stayed in time. Like it was people knocking into them left, right, and center.
yeah.
But I'm a bit clumsy though, so that's probably why I can't.
Fun little fact about Dillinger Escape Plan: their guitarist Ben Weinman went to summer camp with Adam Levine of Maroon 5.
That's so weird.
Yep,
That's
performing.
funny.
I went to that camp. I went to that camp, performing arts camp. So,
Oh, nice.
yep,
Small world.
little.
I always think about, I don't know where they're from, but like places like LA and stuff where like loads of like producers, like or Nashville, I think produces loads of musicians. So I always think about how many different people like went to the same school and stuff like that.
You'd be amazed at how much of a small world it is, and like who saw who before they blew up, and like
Yeah.
who was like Tommy Victor of Prong. He was the front of house sound guy at CBGB's. Think about how many bands he saw before
Oh
he
God, yeah, I bet.
started his own thing. So it's always incredibly fascinating. That's why I've always said make friends with as many people as you can at shows, because you never know what they have in the back of their minds, creativity wise.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it pays to be nice.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for such an awesome conversation. It feels so great to finally get employed to serve on here. You've been asked for numerous times. Is there just
Awesome.
is there just anything else you would like to promote for the release of Conquering? Obviously, it's coming out on September 17th. Is there just anything else you'd like to plug?
I'm trying to think. Oh, you check out mine and Sammy's record label, Church Road Records. We sign all the bands we love, so you might like them as much as we do. But apart from that, that's it really.
Can you bring
Thank you for having me, and I'm sorry again for being late.
No, it's all good. But is there a chance though you could bring Employed to Serve to the States when this fucking virus that shall not be named is behind us?
No, we were supposed to come last summer. We had visas and everything, but we're hoping to come next summer when things are a bit calmer. But we're gonna wait until things are like definite because we don't want to get the whole visa thing twice.
Yeah, I've been telling bands in Europe, get your visas, plan everything ahead, just plan it. Don't announce anything. Like I'm starting to think that the announcements are what's jinxing the whole fucking thing.
I think so too. I think COVID's got like a hive mind, and they're like, no, you're not. You're
Yeah,
like targeting bands.
yeah, I know. So like, my advice to you is just announce it like the day before you're supposed to fly out. People will come. People will come. I promise. But
Yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, I'm confident things will be a bit more normal next year.
knocking on wood.
Can only hope.
Yeah, of course. But thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Justine of Employed to Serve, Conquering, out September 17th. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.